All right, so get ready because today we are going to be diving into some East High drama. You might think, High School Musical like the back of your hand, but we found an essay here that's going to totally change the way you see things. Ready to have your mind blown about why Sharpay Evans might actually be the unsung hero?
Oh yeah, this essay really flips the
It
script.
does.
It argues that Sharpay, yeah, she's often seen as like the antagonist, but she might actually be the most misunderstood character of the entire trilogy.
It's wild, right? Like, wasn't she the one always trying to, like, steal the show, sabotage Troy and Gabriella?
Exactly. But what's so fascinating about this essay is that it makes us look beyond just those surface judgments and consider, like really
Yeah.
consider that maybe Sharpay's actions, they were driven by something way more complex than just like being a diva.
Okay, let's unpack that a little. The essay kicks things off by like really focusing on Sharpay's dedication to theater. It points out that right from the beginning, she just approaches it with such a high level of professionalism, and that's something that True and Gabriella just don't have.
Absolutely. She's been training for years, she's always prepared, and she sees theater as a legitimate career path, not just a fun high school hobby. And the essay argues that this difference in attitude makes Troy and Gabriella's casual approach to theater almost disrespectful to her craft.
It's interesting because when you look at it that way, her frustration makes a lot more sense. Like imagine you poured your heart and soul into something, and then someone just waltzes in at the last minute and they're treated just the same as you, even though they have zero experience. It'd be pretty frustrating.
Exactly. And that brings us to that iconic audition scene. You know, the one where Sharpay and Ryan followed all the rules, only to have Troy and Gabriella show up late and still get to audition.
Yeah, that always kind of bothered me. Like, they're rules for a reason.
Right. And the essay points out that that seemingly harmless scene actually sends a really mixed message about the value of hard work versus just natural talent.
Right.
Does it mean that spontaneity and raw ability are more important than dedication and preparation? It makes you wonder if the program itself is undermined by valuing that last-minute performance as much as the one that was well-rehearsed.
Yeah. And it's not just about fairness either. For Troy and Gabriella, the musical is just one of many things they juggle. They've got basketball, they've got school, all this other stuff. But for Sharpay, theater is her everything. It's her passion, it's her future.
That's a really good point. It adds a whole other layer to Sharpay's reactions. When you consider how deeply invested she is in the program, it makes sense that she would be more sensitive to anything that feels like a threat to its integrity or a lack of respect for her art form.
Totally.
Hmm.
Okay, so moving on to High School Musical 2. So Sharpay retreats to her family's country club for the summer. She's hoping to focus on the talent show. And then, blam, the Wildcats just show up. They basically invade her space.
Yeah, and the essay actually frames this as a deliberate act of sabotage on the Wildcats' part, rather than just a harmless summer getaway. They bring their own drama and their own distractions into Sharpay's carefully constructed world.
They do kind of disrupt her whole plan. And then there's the whole thing with Troy as her duet partner. I mean, on the surface, it seems like she's just being selfish and wanting to control the show.
But could there be another way to look at it? The essay suggests that Sharpay might actually see something special in Troy, some untapped potential,
Yeah.
And maybe she genuinely wants to mentor him and help him reach that.
So maybe she's not just trying to use him for his star power. Maybe she sees him as like a diamond in the rough and wants to help him shine.
Yeah, that's the argument the essay puts forward.
Mm.
It challenges us to ask whether Sharpay's actions, which are often portrayed as manipulative, could actually be motivated by a desire to just make the show better and to nurture someone's talent. And it also makes you wonder, were the Wildcats totally oblivious to Sharpay's ambitions and anxieties? Or were they deliberately choosing to prioritize their own fun over her dreams?
It's like they just didn't even think about it, They just assumed she'd be okay with it, even though it was something she was working so hard on.
And that brings us to one of the most interesting points that the essay makes, this idea of a double standard when it comes to ambition. The film celebrates Troy and Gabriella's drive to be good at basketball and school. But when Sharpay shows that same drive in the world of theater, it's suddenly a bad thing.
It's true. You never think about it that way when you're watching.
Right.
Why is it that their ambition is inspiring, but hers is seen as like...
Skeeving. It's a really good question. The essay suggests that it might be because she's a young woman, and she wants to have a career in something that people think of as overly emotional or dramatic. Is it possible that because she's a girl, her drive and determination are seen in a bad light?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's some unconscious bias happening there. Like if Sharpay was a guy, would her ambition be celebrated like Troy's?
That's a good point. And let's not forget the spoiled rich girl trope that's always attached to her, does that unfairly overshadow her talent and all the hard work she puts in?
Totally. It's like because she comes from a wealthy family, people assume she hasn't had to work as hard as everyone else. But she's so clearly passionate and committed, even if her methods are sometimes a little questionable.
Exactly. And the essay goes on to argue that the Wildcats are actually part of the problem.
Yeah.
They constantly dismiss her contributions to the theater program. They label her a diva,
Yeah.
but they never really acknowledge how dedicated she is and how much she loves theater.
Yeah, they just assume she's being difficult or demanding. But maybe she's just trying to make sure everyone is taking the production seriously.
Right. A really good example of this is the talent show in High School Musical 2. Sharpay spends the whole summer planning and preparing, only to have the Wildcats hijack the show with their last-minute performance.
Yeah, it's fun to watch in the movie, but when you think about it from Sharpay's perspective, it must have been awful.
Right. It's like they're saying her vision doesn't matter as much as their spontaneous performance.
And all her hard work.
And the essay makes this point that it might be sending the message that professionalism and dedication aren't as important as just having fun. Like, you don't need to put in any effort if you're naturally talented.
Which is kind of ironic
Yeah.
because Troy and Gabriella's whole thing was that they were just doing it for fun. And that's what throws Sharpay off in the first place.
It is pretty ironic when you think
Is
about it
it?
that way. But, one thing I found interesting about the essay was how it looked at Sharpay's character development in the third film.
Oh, yeah. By High School Musical 3, she's not just the mean girl anymore.
Right.
She's grown so much.
Exactly. We see her mentoring Tiara Gold, sharing her knowledge and experience, even though Tiara betrays her. And it really seems like Sharpay is starting to understand what's important, like legacy and supporting the next generation.
I'm glad they showed that side of her. It shows that she's not just a villain. She has feelings, and she can be really generous.
It makes her character a lot more complex. It challenges that whole good versus evil thing you see in most high school movies.
So after reading this essay, do you think Sharpay is the real hero of High School Musical?
Well, I think the essay does make a really strong case for that. It definitely makes you rethink who the good guys really are, and consider that the characters we think are the villains might actually be more relatable than we realize.
It's like in real life. Things are rarely just black and white.
Exactly.
Everyone has their own story, their own reasons for acting the way they do.
And this deep dive has really shown us how important it is to try and understand that. Maybe instead of judging people so quickly, we should try to see things from their side.
Absolutely.
It's important to be more open-minded.
It makes you wonder how often we do that in our own lives, Like judge people without really understanding them.
Right.
Maybe the person you think is like super competitive at work is really just passionate and wants to do a good job.
It's so true. We judge people so fast without knowing anything about their motivations or what they're going through. This essay is a good reminder to try and be more understanding and empathetic.
And maybe to challenge those typical stories we always hear in movies and stuff, like maybe the underdog story isn't always so simple.
Yeah,
This deep dive has definitely shown us that there's always more to the story than we think.
for sure.
And sometimes it's the characters that we think are the bad guys who actually have a lot to teach us.
Absolutely.
About things like ambition and resilience and...
And just how complicated people are.
Yeah, so next time you watch High School Musical, maybe try to see it from a different perspective. Pay attention to Sharpay. You might be surprised at what you see.
You might even end up rooting for her.
Well, I think we've officially blown our listeners' minds about High School Musical. And maybe given them a little something to think about
But
how we see the world.
remember, always question what you think you know, and never underestimate the power of a good deep dive.
That's all the time we have for today, but make sure you join us next time for another deep dive into pop culture.